Hello, my name is Claudia, and this is a reflection video for my standard 6, 7, and 8 recording. After watching this video, I have to say that I think overall it went well. However, there are many things, well, not many. I'm not gonna be that tough on myself. There are some things that could be improved for my next lesson. What went well in this lesson is I think I used a lot of different strategies and I was applying assessment constantly. So I was monitoring my students' progress throughout all the class, as well as using different materials and manipulatives, as well as worksheets and games to make sure students got the concept. My learning objective for this lesson was to teach my students how to make 10. This is basically an introduction to addition, and we've been practicing with lower numbers like 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And this was the first time we worked with a 10. I have to say that there are some things that I would change about my video as I saw it and as I discussed it with my mentor. One of them would be that I used my 10 frame counter on the board, and on my next lesson I plan to give my students 10 frame counters as well, so they can model what I do and just not just repeat but do it with their hands, which is what I did with the Unifix cubes. And I did it on the board. I modeled with my hands, and students also had Unifix cubes. So after the video, I noticed that I really needed to give my students 10 frame counters and 2 different color counters as I had on the board for them to do it with me. Although they did it with me, but I think it would have been better if each of them had their own set so they can do it by learn it by doing, not only by watching and repeating. So that's one thing I would definitely change on my video. Talking specifically about the standards, on the standard 6, that is assessment, I think I was able to use both formative and summative assessment. I used formative assessment as games, as well as an exercise they did with me on the board. And then I used a worksheet with Unifix cubes that I modeled first as a summative assessment, as well as a game on the iPads. Talking about standard 7, I think I was able to prove that I demonstrated different strategies, resources, and technological tools such as IXL. I used IXL, which is an app that the school pays for that has a lot of math and literacy exercises. And I had those ready for my students, and they would record after students finish. So I used that also as a summative assessment for this edition, because after we finish this lesson we're gonna do the end of the chapter test. And actually we already started. I took it with some students today and it was really successful. So I think that my method worked. However, it's always good to see what you can do better for next time. Also, coming back to standard 7, I was able to, as I said before, use both formative and summative assessment. And I used the previous data that I had about those students to group them. So I tried to have a group that was homogeneous in terms of math ability, as well as English understanding, so they could all understand what I was saying, considering that most of my students are ELL. However, they are learning under a system that is for native speakers, because it's an English speaking school. Last, we're gonna talk about standard 8, and I think that I was able to continuously monitor my students' progress, and I would get if a student wasn't getting it, so I would do it again. I would reteach immediately. Maybe they didn't even notice I was doing that, but I did it so that I would make sure that everyone was in the same page. I was asking questions about the different ways to make five. Although this lesson was a bit limited in that aspect, that I couldn't touch base on cultural or religious background, as stated in Standard 7, but I think that I was able to include everyone and make the environment feel safe for all my students. I think I had a role as the instructor, and I try to model and then facilitate exercise and games. I wanted to include a game because students love games, and playing is a great way to learn. So this is why I included the dice game on my lesson plan. So in conclusion, I think this lesson went well. I couldn't say it was perfect. I have a lot of things to improve, and one of them would be including counters for my students as a teaching strategy or a tool that is missing for this lesson. But I know I'll use them next time. So that's why I think these videos are really helpful, because they make us learn from our weaknesses and our strengths, and keep on practicing until we get better. Thank you.